The right parent is a parent who thinks. There is kind of an environment going on where children are compared constantly on the basis of marks. This is what parents think, that they are being judged on how children are performing. That's the notion which makes them run in a rat race, make the children also run in the rat race.
Meet Binal Shah, the expert who's redefining parenting. She's guiding parents with science-backed insights, practical strategies, and a whole lot of heart. As a child development and behavior expert, psychologist, and happy childhood coach, Binal is on a mission to help parents raise emotionally secure, confident, and joyful kids.
So children who are having autism, what are the biggest challenges they face?
Language and communication affecting all areas of difficulty.
As parents, compare बहुत करते हैं बच्चों को आपस में. How are they getting impacted if we tend to compare them constantly with other children?
None of us want to be in race all the time. We want our space to grow and learn. That's how most of us decided to have our own work, because we have the liberty to grow in our own way.
I think other thing which I have always told my children, if somebody comes and says, ये मामा पापा को मत बताना, वो मुझे सबसे पहले बताना है, because that's the biggest red flag.
I deal with children where one of the child has autism and other child don't. And these children usually are into trauma that we are not liked. Children are at some point, they want to hide things. And they want to hide only when they see the parents not so trustworthy.
कुछ बच्चे हर चैलेंज को इजीली ओवरकम कर लेते हैं, जबकि दूसरे छोटी छोटी बातों पर भी अपसेट हो जाते हैं. तो ये रेजिलियंस इनबॉर्न होती है या हम पेरेंट्स उसे शेप कर सकते हैं? In this episode of Maatehood, we are peeling back the layers of what truly makes a happy, emotionally strong child. We're getting into the everyday struggles of parenting, backed by psychology and real-life solutions. और इस जर्नी में हमें गाइड करने के लिए हमारे साथ हैं एक incredible guest, Binal Shah. She's a psychologist, a child development expert, and the founder of Harshpin, Mumbai. She's helped so many parents understand their child's behavior better and build stronger, more joyful connections with them. Hi Binal, welcome to Maatehood. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I think life में हमने life coach सुना है, parenting coach सुना है, health coach सुना है, but childhood coach is something very unique, I feel. और मुझे लगता है आज के टाइम में parenting में बहुत necessary हो गया है. So I would like to know more कि what is childhood coach and how's your journey been so far and what inspired you to do this?
So it was quite very easy to for me to come into this space because of my education and my life, how it's been.
Yeah.
So psychology and then education. So psychology and education apparently just make me land here, what I'm doing, because when we talk about childhood, it's all about their learning, their mental health, and how to make them more functional as possible. So childhood coaching is basically helping take care of their mental health, their difficulties and delays, and make them learn and have more functionality towards their life.
How lovely. I think we parents आज के टाइम में बहुत struggle कर रहे हैं to deal with children's emotions.
Yeah.
क्योंकि एक टाइम पे they are like angels और दूसरे सेकंड में they are like full of tantrums. इतने ज़्यादा mood swings हो रहे हैं बच्चों में from a very young age.
Yeah.
So is it normal? Do you think something has changed in today's world?
No, Priyanka, I would not say that, because this inconsistency comes from an environment, and because our lives are also not consistent the way our parents' lives were.
Yes.
And when the environment is not consistent, we can't really expect children to be consistent, because they usually react as per the environment they are kept into.
Yeah.
So today they have this, tomorrow they have that, and moreover, for parents also, it's very important that both the parents, when they are grandparents, even grandparents, so everyone who are like primary caretaker for children, from the maids to nannies or grandparents to parents, I believe that all of them have to be on a same page of understanding and parenting and treatment to our children, more or less same. Exactly same, of course it's not possible, but more or less same, which makes them react more consistently to various environment when required to.
It's a very difficult thing to achieve.
Yeah.
But what I've also read, and everybody says that first few years in a child's life are very crucial, that can really shape them up. So they say ki it has to start early, but how early is early, and how important are those first few years in a child's life?
So first few years are of course important because of their neurology, how they are developing, and other way also because they have first experiences in their life. And if you remember, all our first experiences in our life make long way. Then it's very difficult for us to unlearn and learn something new.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So early years are important because of those 5 years of their life are making them experience most of the things what they're going to face in their future too. So it makes them react, learn to react, and face those challenges much easier, and that makes it important. That's make it important that we start early with them.
Yeah.
And your question, how early is whenever your child asks for it or signals it. Whenever they kind of gives you a signal that they need help, it's early. It may start at 2, for few children it may start at 3.
Yeah.
It could be at that age.
Absolutely. I think habit formation, behavioral development, ये बहुत important aspects हैं life
True.
के, और first few years में इन पे ज़्यादा focus होना बहुत ज़रूरी है,
बहुत
in my opinion.
बहुत ज़रूरी है.
Education से भी ज़्यादा focus
Habit building
we
में.
have to have on their habits, on their behavior, on their emotional well-being, and their social environment, and how they're reacting to their environment. These are very important aspects.
Absolutely, yes.
So, but I have seen parents who are extremely focused on what school they're going to, in the sense like वहाँ पे education कितना अच्छा है, क्या subjects वो पढ़ने वाले हैं. And I always say कि give some rest to your child. Let them first figure their surroundings,
True.
their social settings, their emotional well-being. So what would you say to these parents कि in 7 years में उनका prime focus क्या होना चाहिए?
For 7 years, as you just mentioned, their mental health, their habits, how kind of consistent they are, more than consistent, how acceptable they are to changes, how flexible they are to accept changes, and environment, the way they come. I think these are the most important thing. Grades and marks at those age, it's absolutely not important. But yeah, parents are running behind it because there is kind of an environment going on where children are compared constantly on the basis of marks. But I think now many schools also believe in no marking system till some age.
Yeah.
But there's this parental competition, even there is no mark, there is some marking system, grading system going on among them, which makes it difficult for children too. So it is the way they are being. This is what parents think, that they are being judged on how children are performing. So that's the notion which makes them run in a rat race and make their children also run in the rat race.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not really required, but it is part of many parents' life, and they are just going on with that.
I think as you rightly said, आजकल बच्चों के ऊपर प्रेशर बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है, नॉट जस्ट एजुकेशन बट ऑल्सो उनका एक्सपोजर बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है थैंक्स टू द डिजिटल एज. हर चीज़ का एक्सेस है एंड देयर जस्ट सो मच गोइंग ऑन देयर लाइव्स. सो एंड यू काउंसल अ लॉट ऑफ किड्स. तो किस तरीके के यूजुअल प्रॉब्लम केसेस आपके पास आते हैं, एंड व्हाट यू थिंक आर चिल्ड्रन स्ट्रगलिंग विद द मोस्ट?
So there are two set of children usually. So broadly that I can categorize into. Of course, all children are different. It's very difficult to place them in a group. But broadly, there are children who are extremely stimulated with the environment that they are part of, and it's very difficult for them to concentrate and selectively attend a stimuli which is required them to, because they are overwhelmed most of the time, either physically or in their thoughts. They're just all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another set of children who are quite on task. They are well, I will say, aware. They're very social in terms of being able to regulate their emotions and be on a task when it's required to. The set A that I spoke to, they need time, they need a kind of an environment modification in terms of come to a point, come to a space where they start taking demand and start behaving the way it is required to. And the other set of parents, they're extremely anxious because they are the achievers.
Yeah.
They have been doing so well. So even small changes in their life where they feel their performance will get affected or something like that, it just makes them go haywire and they can't accept it.
Yeah.
So those are the people who are usually achievers, and it's very, very difficult for them to put them into a flexible situation because they have ruled their life until the age they come, and it's very difficult for them to kind of accept the failure.
Yeah.
And that is the reason that most of these children, in spite of being achiever, in spite of being able to put their best into the task that's given to, they don't accept task very easily with the fear of failure. So there are usually kind of concerns that they usually come to.
True. I think children also have hard time dealing with emotions, which is natural, क्योंकि young age में समझ नहीं आता है what they are going through,
True.
what they are feeling, recognizing their feelings. ये ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो लाइफ में हम बहुत later stage पे समझते हैं और सीखते हैं. Can parents help kids to recognize their emotions and kind of, help them navigate this journey of dealing with different kinds of emotions? And if they can, how can they do so?
Absolutely, Priyanka. It's a kind of a language development that they have to be part of.
Yeah.
So the language development, usually parents understand that it's about communication. Yeah, it is, of course. First is speech, then is communication, and the second is, of course, after that, usually we take academics more into consideration, but moreover, I require is that emotional regulation, that reading their own thoughts, expressing them well, reading their own thoughts, intentions, behavior. With that, reading other person's thought, emotions, and behavior, and being able to take care of their own impulses by something called executive functioning. What is executive functioning? Is basically instructing their own self in their mind the way it's required to be in the present situation when it's required. So this is kind of a training that, of course, we have to give children. But if, of course, if the school or these children are coming regular to us, then we can definitely help them go through that. But most of the time, we also train parents to help their children, make them learn their children how to instruct themselves in a way that they behave and kind of work in a way it's required for them.
क्योंकि हर बच्चा अलग होता है, हर किसी का स्टाइल अलग है, इमोशंस को हैंडल करने का तरीका अलग है. So it's very important to understand your child. But if your child is going through any sort of learning difficulties, what are the signs and symptoms which parents can look for? And if they can recognize कि हाँ learning, I wouldn't say disabilities, but कोई difficulties हैं, so how can they deal with it?
So the earliest they can find the learning difficulty could be 1.5 or 2, because that's where
the age.
That's the age, 1.5 or 2 years age. Because earlier, those times, we expect them to learn from the environment and start reacting in a way. So whether they are learning by self, whether they're accepting environment the way it is, they are perceiving things the way they are coming across them. So 1.5 to, there are few kind of difficulties that we can not really diagnose, but we can say that they fall into that category. After 2.5 and 3, we can talk more about their emotional regulation, impulses, how well they are taking language ahead. So they are basically milestones that have to be kept checked from 1.5 to 2 to 3 to 3.5. I think by 3.5 or 4, most of the difficulties, let's say 5, maximum by 5, most of the difficulties which could be part of their life in adulthood or kind of adolescence or later childhood will be seen as an onset by 5. Most of these things, whether they're emotional challenges or learning challenges or cognitive challenges or social difficulties, all these difficulties will start showing some traces between their 1 to 5.
So, किस तरीके का symptoms you can actually notice?
So, as I'm saying, there could be learning, there could be physical development, there could be language development that you can look into. There's play skills, social skills that you can look into. Even attention, motor coordination, these are the areas that we look into. So mainly we have like those 9 protocols around those 9 areas of development. Okay, and we keep our checks on for 5 years of their life and all the 9 areas of development.
Okay.
To ensure that everything is going on point, and wherever they require work, we just help parents to get sorted as early as possible.
And what are those 9 areas?
So it starts with attention and cooperation.
Okay.
Then is sensory integration and motor coordination. The third is play and leisure skills. The third is language development. Fourth is play and leisure, social skills, independent living, emotional regulation, academic readiness, and after 7 or 8 years of their life, we also look into their vocational independence in terms of what are the basic skills which require to be built from there.
Yeah. I think as a child, it's very difficult to recognize क्योंकि बहुत सारे time we tend to ignore कि अभी बच्चा बहुत छोटा है. So they will learn with time, right? I've also seen, for example, situations where children as young as 18 months or 2 years of age are going for speech therapy.
True.
So I mean, of course, in my opinion, I felt like it might be a bit too early because अभी तो उसे बोलना सीख रहे हैं. And with time, I feel वो ठीक हो भी जाता है. But in your opinion, how important it is कि हम speech therapy इसको हम early time से start करें? How important it is?
So when children come to us between 1.5 and 2, which is very rare, So between 1.5 and 2, we see their speech being impacted if it is. But moreover, we also see prerequisites.
Okay.
So attention, that's what is attention and cooperation, the play skills, right? So if the play is fixated or they are not on task, even in play, because you know what, language development, the first thing which is required for language development other than their own physiology is attention to words. Okay, once they start paying attention to the words around them, they start kind of building vocabulary and content in their brain, and then it's an automatic procedure without filter that the speech starts getting development, because physiologically there is no problem. But if there is no attention, okay, there is no attention to stimulus the way it is required, there are chances that speech will get delayed because there's no content in brain to get out of it. There's no kind of instruction given to the brain for them to be vocalized out of them kind of mouth or maybe the organs. So we'll look into that prerequisite, that between 1.5 and 2. So if we see there is attention, there is awareness, there is responding, even not through words, at least through gestures, then we know that, okay, it is just timely, and because there is attention, eventually the language will develop. But if there is delay in attention, there is a delay there where child is just all over the place, the way I just said, that they are just all over the place and highly overstimulated with the environment and a lot of other things that going around, then it's very difficult to get their concentration on the words the way they are coming. Then we get their attention to be processed little faster and more smoother, so that the language will automatically start developing. So in that speech therapy, if there is no physiological difficulty that we see, we give lot of vocal stimulation in different way, so that that attention to language start giving them result of speech and communication.
All right.
Yeah, but if it is not, we ask them to wait for until 2.5 or 3. So only and only if attention is not paid to the words, then only or there is some physiological difficulty that doctors are figuring out, then there is need of therapy to start that early.
All right. You also mentioned that you deal with kids with autism and ADHD.
True.
So how early can parents recognize that their child is going through something like this?
Yeah.
Is it like, because usually it's by birth?
Yeah, it is by birth.
It is by birth. And but do they get to know right after birth that my child is having autism?
No. with the experience around autism and with children. So first time parents will take at least 2.5 or 3 to figure that out, that something is going wrong with their own child. But if second kid, it's earlier because there is something to compare with the earlier pregnancy and experience.
Yeah.
Then I have so many second time mothers who jumped into ask for consultation by 1.5, 1.6 or 1.8.
Okay.
So that's the like for autism, 1.5, 1.6 until 2, you should be quite clear about the symptoms that child is showing. We may not diagnose them because it's too early, but we may start helping them come out with those necessary development and learning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But in my experience, of course, because we have seen children, we understand the pattern that it is going to touch that or reach there. So yeah, we help parents change the environment and the way they treat children at home to ensure that learning is coming in pace early as possible. With ADHD, it's not so much of language being delayed, but there is high advanced level of language being delayed. You can figure out until by like 3.5 and 4 that child is overly stimulated and not being able to process the instruction the way they are. It's advanced level of language development. And then we can help them with language development or learning or cognitive stimulation to make them more functional.
Okay. So talking about autism again, what are the signs and symptoms again that parents can watch out for? That there could be something like this my child is having, and once they recognize, is there any sort of diagnostics they can do, any test or anything they could go for?
So there are usually those instruction-based, interview-based tests for parents that they ask questions, and on the base of that we can figure out that how the learning is going on and how the development of the child is going on, and we can give them kind of a red flag alarm or something like that. But until 7 or 8 or 9, when we see that okay, autism has taken its full form in child's life with whatever is going on and the functionality of child is getting hampered, until that there is no diagnosis usually which is done.
So children who are having autism, what are the biggest challenges they face?
Communication, language and communication affecting all areas of difficulty. It starts with getting accepted, being accepted to the environment, inflexibility and inattentiveness, and then it starts showing its trace in all the areas of development I just mentioned.
Okay.
It starts with inattention. That remains to be my first area of development, in attention and cooperation. Because they're inattentive, they're not cooperative, they're not kind of complying to instructions given, and they're not being able to regulate themselves well in the environment they kept. Slowly and gradually, that learning deficiency is being seen in all areas.
So parents who are having children with autism, how do you think they should navigate this journey? Because it's a tough journey.
The first and foremost, as I always say, accepting it as early as possible, getting into the right treatment. There are like 100 treatments around, but try to find best for your child. Get into the parents training, because taking to therapies will not help you. It's all over treatment environment that you need to produce for your child. Okay, so get into the treatment or get into the training yourself. Start reading yourself, start finding the best way to deal with your child, because everything is going to be customized. There's no one-shot rule for everything. There's a science which need to be applied to in child's life depending on the environment they are part of. Right? So start reading, learning, getting things, and don't wait. Even if you see slightest change in your child's behavior, because see, at 2 and 1.5 the difference will be slightest only because child is just 1.5 and the expectation from the child is only slightest. With that slightest and expectation also that you're seeing difference, it is going to grow as the expectations grow. Right? So I always say, when your child is 2, okay, the highest level of lag could be 1. Because after 1 only you are going to expect any kind of language development and play from your child. Till 1 they are not regulated, which is okay for them.
Yeah.
So that 1 year of lag is quite achievable in coming 1 year.
True.
But if you, but it doesn't grow proportionately. At 2, if you expect 200 things, at 3 you would expect 3,000, and by 4 there will be 40,000.
Yeah.
So because it doesn't increase proportionately,
No.
you need to get into that learning as soon as possible. The lesser the expectation from the child, you get that into the pace, and then slowly and gradually everything will start happening organically.
So children who are having autism, वो regular school भी जा सकते हैं, special school भी जा सकते हैं. What in your opinion should be followed? क्या उनको regular school में education दिलवाना चाहिए, या you think कि special school में उनको ज़्यादा attention मिलेगा?
Regular school. I feel that early years of their life, they should be part of regular school with some modification and some help, okay, where their assistants are more trained, learned. They are taken care in their learning to help these children.
Yeah.
Even teachers could be educated well to help these kids in small and bits and parts where they are, and they can sail out very easily until many years of their life in school. And after that, if learning and when the grade comes in picture and things are not happening, maybe there are alternative way to make them educated also. But earlier years, for sure, regular school.
That will help them develop better.
Absolutely, yes. So I always, you know what, when I do the intervention for children in the school, I don't really work only to ensure the child gets adjusted in the environment. I do a lot of work in terms of I take the help of the teacher, the coordinators, to help the entire class sensitive about that. Because ये एक अकेला बच्चा कितना changes अपने में लाएगा. I think all other children can also be more kinder, inclusive, and try to offer their help in a way best possible to help this child get included. Because खाली if that individual is trying to get included, it is endless journey.
True.
If those children have already shut their door. Absolutely. So it's a kind of a two-way process. We and usually we help teachers understand, principal understand, counselors understand, but we fail to make these children understand because they feel they are young. But I feel they can be a great help. That classroom monitoring, and then children love to be monitored for that kid, and then they wait for their turn. Today I'm going to be assistant to that particular child, and that peer tutoring or kind of buddy training works really well.
I'm sure. I think it has a lot to do with awareness.
Yes.
एक ये ऐसा subject है जिसके बारे में इतना awareness
नहीं है.
Adult level पे भी और kids level पे भी. I think वो awareness आ जाएगी, inclusivity आ जाएगी, तो journey will become much easier.
Yeah.
That is my opinion.
Absolutely. So when we go to school, regular school around, and we tell them that one of our kid has autism or ADHD, but we want them to be part of your school, and then the first concern will, we would like to help them, but we don't know how other parents would react. And we would say, please make them meet me.
Yes.
Because it's a time and it's an opportunity for their own children to be, it's a space where they are going to be helping and kind to other child. True. And I think it's the best way to make them learn about differences and challenges around. That will make them more kind and nothing less. So I personally meet these parents in the PTM meeting and then make them aware that how your children can also grow emotionally by being part of this program. And it's worked very well for me.
Oh, that's so lovely to hear. But in general, I think एक अजीब सा competition बढ़ गया है parents में भी और बच्चों में भी. And I feel कि as parents हम बहुत बार ऐसा we tend to say कि compare बहुत करते हैं बच्चों को आपस में. We tend to say कि उसने देखो कितना अच्छा किया, उसने देखो कितना कुछ achieve किया. We don't realize how it is going to impact and affect our children.
True.
So in cases में emotionally हमारे बच्चों को ऊपर कैसा असर आता है? I mean, how are they getting impacted if we tend to compare them constantly with other children?
It's exactly in a way we will get affected when we are compared constantly.
Yeah.
We none of us want to be in race all the time. We want our space to grow and learn. That's how most of us decided to have our own work, because we have the liberty to grow in our own way rather than being in that competition all the time. It's a nice feeling to be in own space and growing in the way. And I think it makes us grow more. Right? And that's exactly how it will happen with kids too. Let them grow. Let them compare their own growth from the last year or few months back. Tell them that they are growing well, and give them very rational targets to them. That okay, you are growing this way. Maybe you were studying you were reading for 2 hours until now, and we want you to go to maybe 2 hours 15 minutes from now. It will be a nice way to grow yourself. So that's achievable rational goals. Other than just putting them into competition and telling that others are reading, because that's very irrational, right? So that's how it is.
We tend to question always if we are doing it right or not as parents. I think when we were young, it was completely different in the sense, if we haven't achieved something, तो डांट तो पढ़नी ही पढ़नी है. Fail हो गए तो पढ़नी ही पढ़नी है. या कुछ improvements नहीं है, या hard work नहीं है, dedication नहीं है. So our parents would give us hard time.
True.
On the other hand, now we are constantly very supportive to our children. Even if they haven't achieved anything, we would say, it's okay. Still you tried, you've given your best. And do you think by doing so, we are kind of making them weaker and not making them like work hard enough? Because our parents thought differently, but we think that it has to be a more constructive approach, that you work alongside your child to help them grow better. What is the difference? Are there any pros and cons?
I'll tell you, Priyanka, there's no white and black here. It's also grey. And moreover, there's thin line between being extremely rigid and being lenient. So sometimes you are this, sometimes you are that, and you try to balance the way it is required. And there's no fixed medicine to this, right? So, but I always tell, this is what I do for my son, that okay, learning is important, putting your hard work is important. Grades are not important until we go to a level where your entry is based on that grades. But I know that as a byproduct, you would keep growing in your grades if you will keep growing in your targets and goals that you put towards your hard work. So let's work hard. Let's do our best. Let's not look back into that. And let's wait for end product. That's how we see, right? We never make your goals. You make your pattern of behavior and lifestyle your goal. And then weight is a byproduct of your lifestyle. So let's not talk about marks and weight the way it is required. Let's talk about habits and lifestyle. So let's talk about their habit of learning, their learning style, the amount of time you put into that, and kind of perseverance you show towards that. And the grades will keep flying and running here and there. And let's make it a kind of let's make a space where you can talk about it, how to make this improve through our lifestyle. That's what we do.
I also feel like parents have this thing like, my child is very shy and not showing any signs of being very confident. We all want to raise very confident kids of course. We want them to be happy and confident about the way they are leading their life. Is there any recipe, any like method that we can follow to make them more resilient, more confident?
So
it doesn't come in a day, of course.
It doesn't come in a day. But it's strictly, more than strictly, so I go with the saying that my mother uploaded me so well that I didn't hear who else were there or no. So it's all about how much confidence we show on them on the days where they failed, on the days where they have like come out with flying colors. So keep showing that confidence of even things are gone bad, I know that you can do it, and just go on with it.
And I'm right
and always, and always, as I said, make targets of only very little growth, which makes them feel succeeded, and they have scope of growth there. So rational targets and putting them in a right word that what went wrong and how to go on with that, and prompting them to reach their target will help them be as confident as possible. So I think it's all come from home. It's all come from consistent behavior from parents in terms of how we treat them.
True, truly. There's another very common issue now, coming from a very young age, is body shaming.
Yeah.
So I have heard about it as young as kids like 6 or 7 talking about, oh, this one is so fat, or this one is having a mustache, and these are silly things kids already started to talk about other kids. Now, as a parent, I want that I make my child so strong mentally that if somebody is doing this to her, that she doesn't get affected.
True.
But still, they're kids. It's very tough. They do get affected because that is their environment.
Yeah.
So, how we parents can ensure that our children are still taking it positively, in the sense they stay afloat and not get very negatively affected by this?
So, I think making them aware about their strengths, let their weakness just pass out. So maybe this is how we can approach them to kids, like, yeah, could be. Everyone look differently, and most of the time shape of body and color of skin and these things are not in our hand, but skills and other things are. So let's work on something which is more functional and more into our hands, rather than just talking about something that
the appearances
and look.
Yeah.
Because these things will not hold any value ahead once your work and kind of thoughts you come out with. So that's how I think most of our children should be taken care. And in second way, also again, the way that if this child is getting bullied because of that, it's not her mistake most of the time.
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
So I think it's a overall way, the way everyone takes care of the children and they talk about it. So yeah, so maybe important sentences are that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm here for, and I don't need any kind of certificate from others to be. So these kind of assertive sentences would help them come out more confidently of what they have.
Yeah, because many kids are also not very comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
कि स्कूल में क्या हो रहा है या दूसरे बच्चे उनको क्या बोल रहे हैं. They're not very expressive. So parents के लिए it's sometimes very difficult to understand what my child is going through. One similar case is bullying, right? Now there are two ways to it. Your child can be a victim. And sometimes, very shockingly, your child can be the bully.
Yeah,
without you realizing it.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the victim side of it first. How can parents recognize? Because, I mean, we as parents, हम लोग का पहला thought ही यही होता है, if my child is sad and dull and not enjoying at school, is there any bullying happening? I mean, maybe it's too early and too quick to jump to conclusions.
Yeah, but that could be
that could be one
thought,
of the reasons. So, are there any symptoms or signs that we can recognize कि bullying हो रहा है at school?
Not very clear. Maybe at very subtle level. So taking care of where your child is getting inclined to, their behaviors day to day. So you may, if you feel that child's behavior is a little different, not eating, or maybe taking care of skin very, very subtly,
some
you can
significant
see
changes in their
changes lifestyle में आप देखोगे तो शायद आपको पता चले. And moreover, you know what, try to build your trust with your child in a way by sharing your own stories in a way that they feel like they feel more confident and secure to come and talk to you about these things.
Of course.
So I think that's one thing that you can do. Just observe them well and keep the communication as open as possible for them to have, for them to feel that this is a very secure space for me to come and talk.
Because it can be a very dangerous situation. Now let's talk about the other side of it.
Yeah.
You as a family are very kind, very inclusive, very compassionate. And sometimes you just figure from school that my child has been the bully.
Yeah.
How can that happen?
Maybe again, if something like this comes up, as a parent, you can talk to your child that everyone comes from different background. They all have their own lifestyles, their own journey, and it can happen that you are not liking few people around you, which is okay, but making them feel short or low of what they have is not acceptable at all. And hurting anyone physically or mentally, emotionally is absolutely, as a family, we don't accept, because we don't do that. We try to be as kind as possible because we are here with things that we are being blessed with, and we want to do best with that we can. And that's, I think, family culture that you come up across. It's just that. Moreover,
That's
you talk
what I
about
meant.
that.
At home, we are like very kind and very nice to each other, and then maybe the kid is behaving completely different outside.
So it's time to just make them reminded of value system that we all are based, and then showing them your own journey from where you have come, and then how things have grown, and things are not very easy. Right?
Because I've met some kids who have become real pain for anybody else in the class. And I've met the parents. They're very nice and very kind people. And but then for parents also it becomes very tough to how to handle this, because वो उतना ही काइंडनेस से, उतना प्यार से समझाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, वो वर्क नहीं कर रहे. एंड अगर वो गुस्से से और हार्डशिप से उसको थोड़ा हैंडल करते हैं तो वो दैट्स अ साइकिल. It'll increase the bullying behavior even more. So that's kind of something very, I think,
maybe consequences. There could be at least 1% that as a child they are looking up to, right? It could be grandparent, it could be mother, it could be father, and they can raise their voice in terms of by giving them little harsh or negative consequences of what is going on, because maybe that can work, because you know what, sometimes even if kids are doing something, as a child, I remember one thing, that whatever I did outside the house, okay, our first concern used to be कि हमारी मस्ती घर तक नहीं पहुंचनी चाहिए, because moreover we were more concerned of how our parents will take care, because they are the boss of our life, they are givers. How can we not listen to them? They are the providers. बाहर निकाल दिया तो क्या करेंगे घर से? Right?
But somewhere I think deep down they know कि बाहर निकालेंगे भी नहीं.
हाँ, मतलब अभी तो ऐसा लगता है.
Children these days are very smart. They understand everything.
But at least we as, of course, our kids, our upbringing was different. घर से नहीं निकालते पर रहना मुश्किल कर देते. That way. Now it doesn't happen with children, so it's difficult. But yeah, I would say that somewhere being very firm in your values from parents, it can get changed. It has to be changed from their value system only. It cannot be worked on a superficial level. It is very difficult.
Absolutely. And it's a constant effort. It's not like in one day you can change things.
And it's very contradictory, the way you said that parents are really kind and child is being bullied. It's really contradictory. It doesn't happen that way. So there could be some incidences where the child has also gone through that to learn that, to apply that in. So most of the children who are bullied, when I have spoken to them, they have said, "Ma'am, हमारे साथ भी ऐसा हुआ था कभी." Always. They have been victims once in their life, maybe in early years, at subtle level, at small scale, wherever, to make them grow as a bully, to show that, because if they couldn't fight with the power somewhere, they would want to apply that power somewhere else. To help them.
Way of dealing with their emotions.
It's a trauma behavior. Trauma response.
Even for parents, I feel there's too much pressure these days, right? Because most of us are working, and even if we are not working, there's just so much going on in our lives. So बहुत बार we also end up being very angry, या गुस्से में ऐसी चीज़ें बोल देते हैं जो बच्चों के लिए एक lasting impact छोड़ सकते हैं. Any small things. If you don't do this, I'm going to do this. Tell me a few of such phrases जो parents को बिल्कुल avoid करने चाहिए और parents को कभी नहीं, बच्चों को कभी नहीं बोलने चाहिए.
मुझे ऐसा कुछ नहीं लगता है, ऐसा नहीं ही बोलना चाहिए, बिकॉज टाइमली जो बोलना चाहिए वो बोल भी लेना चाहिए. और but being really very rude to them is not acceptable. Take a time to respond to your child. Okay, always take that 2-second pause or 3-second pause in terms of when you want to respond to your child. So you can also recoil yourself of what's going on and try to be as specific as possible. Try to be more consistent again, and also I would say try to be, so in terms of consistency, when I say, usually parents, example, if a child is coming and I go for swimming, and then as a parent we are just busy with some work and we would say no, you don't go to swimming, because it's just going to increase our work in a way that okay, sab arrangement karna padega, kaun jayega. So we'll say no, you don't go to swimming now. And they will come up like, you par ye swimming kyun nahi ja sakta, main jana hai mujhe, and then you will be like, हाँ chale jao. So you are also
you're not
kind
consistent.
of, you are not consistent, you are changing your words constantly, which makes them say that thoda push karenge to change ho jayega. And they keep trying themselves best, and they become more and more stronger in terms of their kind of resist towards our whatever instruction that we give. So try to take a time, try to take a pause, yes to yes, no to no. And if in case that you want to change your response, then okay, give the justification that I never wanted you to go because this was a lot of work from my end, but I am taking the time just because you are consistent, but this is not going to be your regular practice. If I say no, you also have to be acceptable to it. And if I say yes, I will make sure that I will give you best of the experiences in your life, but there are times that you also have to accept the situation, not from your end, from our ends too. And we have to make one balance life where you are also not getting suffered and we are also not getting suffered, because ultimately we are human being towards growth. So I think that's kind of,
you have to see what really works between you two.
There's
no defined approach.
There's no defined approach, but inconsistently responding to them all the time and being rude to them, being harsh to them, talking about their emotions and intentions rather than straight their behaviors also make them confused, because you make a judgment about कि तुमने ये सोचा होगा कि ये करना है. Sometimes parents also say that, and they will say no, मैंने तो इतना कुछ सोचा ही नहीं था, मैं तो कल ही कर रहा था. So that kind of behavior. So try talk to them point to point so that they can more concretely take those responses from you will help you go on straightly.
I also feel कि हर age के अपने अलग-अलग challenges हैं. I don't feel that is true. I mean, toddlers have different, they give you different kind of challenges, and then once they're like 7, 8, it's different, and teenagers and of course different altogether. And I think as a first time mom, behavior बहुत अलग होता है than the second time mom, because we have understood a lot of things at a deeper level. Experience भी आ जाता है.
Of course.
But first time especially, we tend to rush and we say सब कुछ perfect करना है. And out of that perfectionism, we also end up being very, I mean, we just literally get very wound up with things. And a very dear friend of mine, she gave me this book, and the title says, All You Need Is Love. And that just one sentence changed my entire approach towards my children. I'm like, no matter what, I'm going to sort this out with love.
True.
As long as they're young and they're still developing their, their mindset and their thinking and their emotional intelligence, they're still busy with these things. They're still figuring themselves out. So the only approach I'm going to follow is all they need is love. And I'm very thankful to my dear friend who gave it to me. And it has worked out beautifully, wonderfully. Because as you said, हमारे expectations तो बहुत बढ़ते जाते हैं बच्चों से. But of course, they're still kids, right? They're not going to deliver on all those expectations. So expectations को थोड़ा कम रखो and grow with your child.
Grow with your child. Handle things with love and care.
100%.
And be assertive in what it is and what are the boundaries and limitations that you're expecting from your child. Being more consistent again there.
True.
And going on with love is exactly what you need.
Absolutely.
You know what? I always tell that every one of us, like not every, most of us wanted to be parent, but none of us decided to be only parent. So we all have our own lives going on with
Which
the
is
parenting.
so important too.
And that's where there's a time that every parent needs that learning with the so much of revolutionary era that we live in. Everything is so dynamic. Everything is so different every day. It's very essential that learning as a parenting also keeps going on.
100%.
And you don't go on with the same thought, because it doesn't work that way. You know, as a parent, so as an adult, not as a parent, when we also come across so many emotions around, we also look into books. We look into maybe some sayings from some saints or anything that we believe. We also seek counseling, because that's what we want to listen all the time, to ensure that our thoughts turn into our habits. That's exactly what parenting is.
That is true.
Yeah, because as a parent, you also need to be in that learning space constantly to match with the requirement that your children are coming with. They need your mental support more than your physical presence. Because you know what, sometimes your physical absence also make them more functional and more productive, rather than you just being around that. So it's of course non-functional for you as a parent, and hampering the growth as a child to them. So it's very important that all of us, of course, parenting is a full-time journey, but we take out time to do something which is important.
You also talked about that you have a lot of children who come to you who are dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it. What are the kind of cases you come across?
So trauma, there could be anything like loss in family, or maybe separation from parents, because in India, still living separately, living in two homes with separated parents, it's quite difficult to be seen. So it's not that common as in Western culture. So these things are yet to get adjusted in parents' life, in child's life.
Yeah.
So those kind of trauma where parents are living separately and they have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Other than at the subtle level, difference in opinion at parental level is also traumatic for children. Because mother said something else and father just denied and he did something else, and the poor children have to struggle between how to react to mother and how to react to parent, and then a lot of mental I would say work goes into how to react with whom, at what situation, spending their time more into that rather than something important to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are also very subtle level trauma, like even domestic fights could be one of the reason. Maybe losses in terms of financial losses in families, also traumatic to children. So that way, because their lifestyle changes.
Do children easily open up about this? Can they express that they're having some traumatic experience?
Not easily, but in the first session, or maybe by maximum second session, we get them into space where third session they come, and definitely they want to come. So third, usually I have a rule. The 2 appointments your parents make, third appointment you make for yourself.
So here we're talking about children who are a little older.
Little old. And for younger, so if they are young children and they don't have insight, then I think more of parental counseling also only works. Then I don't need to see them one-to-one. I see them one-to-one for different purposes, but parental training is more important because their environment has to be modified to make sure that the behaviors are taken care. But if children have insight, then that's a rule. 2 appointments parents make. Third appointment is given when child himself or herself makes an appointment for themselves. And it works really well. Most of the kids make third appointment. Because in these 2 sessions, they are made aware and they're shown important of being open up and requirement of help that they're needing, and that works really well.
So if there's a child who's been through a traumatic experience, and as parents, we have recognized it, but still haven't been able to deal with it at a younger age, how can this lead to bigger problems when they grow up?
Clearly, it is going to. It is going to hamper their mental health, their learning ability, their social skills, and how their thought process is built into a lot of things. I think childhood trauma are important to be taken care as early as possible to ensure that they are more functional, healthy, and learning individual in future. It is absolutely important. If we know that there was trauma and if we don't do about it, I don't know. Yeah. It's not acceptable, right? As a parent, because as kids, they would not go straight to counselor.
Of course.
But I think caretakers and parents are the ones who need to be taken
100%.
care.
And it can lead to bigger problems than once they make family.
Absolutely.
Can lead to bigger problems for the future generations.
Absolutely. So Priyanka, I'm talking about all the adult psychotic issues, like schizophrenia or bipolar, or it could be anything like that. They all have their traces somewhere from childhood in one or the other way.
Okay.
Everything, none of these adult psychiatric or psychotic issues can pop up like directly into adulthood. They can't.
Yeah.
They have the traces in their childhood through environment or their own families or their genes or how they have built up.
Yeah.
And that all only lead them to, because after that, of course, the environment also matters, but there is a spark from the childhood which makes them go till that level.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on a bit of a lighter note, I think parents who have more than like 2 or more kids, एक बहुत कॉमन चीज़ उनको डे टू डे बेसिस पे सुनने को मिलती है, आप इसको मुझसे ज़्यादा प्यार करते हो.
हाँ.
है ना?
So among siblings you are telling. हाँ.
So we as parents, हम उसको थोड़ा lightly लेते हैं. But do you think it can be a bit more difficult to process for children अगर उनके मन में ऐसी feeling आ रही है तो?
It may not. It may definitely make a bigger ground in their awareness later, and they may grow with that base that I was liked less or somebody else was liked more. So I think maybe talking about that what is needed here, who needs what more, what time and what kind of work from you is a requirement for whom, and how you're making yourself available for requirement for both both or 3 children, whoever they are.
Yeah.
So making their very clear of, so person who asks this has it in mind for sure.
Yes.
No one will ask just like that. No word, even just one comment from them definitely has root inside for that to come out. So that's an opportunity to talk to them, that what makes them say that.
Yeah.
And what makes you do what you're doing, and how you try to make yourself available to children that you have with the work and what you have. So you can just tell them that it's how I as an adult am more clear in terms of what I want from you. You as a child also, more than thinking this, just why don't you come and tell me?
Because it's usually the older child. Because
it's
they
always
had you for them,
individually,
themselves completely, and then
yeah.
comes in the second one or the third one.
Yeah.
But I think as parents, you also recognize which child is needing more of your attention and which child is more independent.
So I think that's a time to communicate that to your child very clearly. So maybe that's where the counselor also plays a role. So Priyanka, I deal with children where one of the child has autism and other child don't. And these children usually are into trauma that were not liked.
Yeah.
Because naturally their siblings' time is taken, the parents' time is taken by sibling.
Yeah.
And I really conduct a session where I invite the siblings to show them the difficulty the other child is going through and how it is important. I make them feel that how much time consuming it is, and your brother needs, because most of the time it is that they are also careful because they're sibling, they're blood, they would care for the sibling, but that attention that they're missing out is more worrisome. Then we tell them that why don't you just tell your parent, this is the time I want you to be there, and I want parents also to make themselves available for the sibling there and make it more clearer in terms of like this is this one's time, and maybe little more time will be given to the other child where required. They will have their part of time where they can also enjoy that exclusiveness from parents'
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
So maybe talking out with love, the way you just said,
Yeah.
everything can be taken care with love.
That is so true. If we talk about siblings fights,
Yeah.
most of the times it could be out of fun, out of love, and sometimes they're just trying to process their emotions. But is there a stage where intervention is needed from parents' side?
Boundaries. Make boundaries clear. Make rules of the house clear. Make them clear of the tone which is acceptable, which is not.
Yeah.
Words which are acceptable, which are not. Tell them that there are ways to show differences through kindness, and that's more acceptable and encouraged by parents.
True.
So these are the boundaries and limitations and rules which make at least it as a better environment rather than wrestling grounds.
Yeah, yeah. Hitting, punching, pushing.
Hitting.
These are complete no-no.
So completely no.
Bad
yes,
language.
these are not acceptable. You may just train them to use the same thing in more assertive and kinder way. So get them into practice of using that kind language constantly, even through when they want to express their differences, and then accept those differences. It is okay tonight, not like the other child
things.
or in certain times, but using that language is acceptably not acceptable. So that is a kind of boundaries.
That leads me to my next question कि हम लोग एक buzzword है emotional intelligence, उस पे हम लोग काफ़ी focus कर रहे हैं as parents. But what exactly is emotional intelligence, and how can we help kids build it up?
So I can say intelligently working on your emotions and modifying the behavior in a socially acceptable way is emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way I just said.
Scientifically, can it be achieved at an early age?
Scientifically, it can be achieved once the insight is built into children.
Okay.
Slowly and gradually, I just mentioned giving them rules, giving them boundaries, giving them kind words, making them modify the language the way it's required. So slowly, it is a path to reach that emotional, intellectual level where even if I'm not liking somebody, I will process it. I will use my words in a way that they are more acceptable and audible rather than just working with a tone which is just going to be center of the entire conversation.
True.
And not being able to hit the rock the way it's required.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So slowly and gradually, I think it can be started at by 3, 3.5 and 4 at a subtle small exercises. So in those counseling sessions, we start working. So you know what counseling sessions are? When once in a 2 times in a week they come, they try to talk about all those experiences of 2 days, and then slowly and gradually we just process through it. That's how it works.
True. And I think we briefly spoke about it कि counseling sessions कितने essential और important हैं.
True.
And I think it's a mindset and it's a cultural shift which we have to bring in, because even in today's time, it's a taboo to go to the counselor, to the psychologist. Parents and children and in general, we tend to avoid it. But I personally feel that it has to be part of your life. It's very normal, very okay to go to a counselor and seek some sort of support and help in processing your emotions and things you're going through and expressing yourself.
Yeah.
How you think we can do better at it? And how we should perceive it, in general, how parents should make it a part of their
day-to-day
routine
life.
if it's needed.
Yeah, maybe like being more open about. So every parent, whoever, when they want to go to counseling, they would keep it into private. So maybe talking more openly about it, accepting it, and making it more a day-to-day life rather than some big affair to get into it.
It's not a disease.
It's not a disease. It's just a way of life, and I think it's a proud moment to be part of something which is making you better individual in long run. And you, if like you are blessed with the resources that you can provide that to your child, I think it could be the best gift that you can give your child, because not all parents can afford the services all the time.
True.
you know,
Sure.
because
And
they
have
are human
access.
services. They are quite expensive.
Yeah.
Because human with expertise, giving their time, and time is most expensive thing in this era.
Yeah.
So giving their time with the knowledge and skill, if you can give your child that, I think you are giving them the best life. You're giving
Yes.
them life
Yes.
where they're navigated in a right way, rather than giving them treatment after something has gone wrong. So getting into intervention
turned into something bigger.
Yeah. So prevention is definitely better than cure.
Yes.
Let's get into the path where no intervention or long run intervention will be required later.
True.
Yeah.
100%. And I think you were mentioning it earlier कि इस case में teachers को educate करना and even other kids in the class,
Yes.
जो students हैं, peers
True.
हैं, उनको भी educate करना is very
Absolutely.
important. I feel the schools are not equipped yet. There are very few schools are kind of accepting this and open to learn more about it and adapt. How do you think the schools need to kind of be more inclusive towards this, and कहीं ना कहीं एक reform की ज़रूरत है? So what needs to be done?
I feel the schools here need to slow down, where mental health should be given more importance. The behavior, the habit building
Yeah.
should be given more important than contents that they are learning, or academics that they are learning, and those literacy skills that they are learning. I think it's a way they look it as important.
Yeah.
Once they will start believing more into it, if they start making it in a way that that it is more, if it's encouraged more in the classrooms, I'm sure the children will start picking it up, because everyone wants to be in teachers' good books.
True.
Right?
True.
And that's how they would also start picking up those skills to be more kinder and more helpful and acceptable.
हाँ. Physical education एक topic है अभी जो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा schools में include हो रहा है, and then I think now schools are even going to an extent जहाँ पे even for difficult topics they're having an open conversation with children. Should mental health and emotional health be also part of a curriculum?
More than yes. It has to be. From the earliest years, in a slowly and gradually in different activity form or some way, those topics have to be put light on to ensure that they become strong root in their lifestyle later years, and that becomes their ground when they grow to be more independent and learnable.
Absolutely.
So there's no other way than this. It
I
has
think
to be.
physical के साथ साथ mental health पे focus should also be the prime focus.
Absolutely.
And it's very important.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
So Binal, I would like to dig into another topic, which is a very difficult topic to talk about, but needs a lot of awareness. And that is child abuse.
Okay.
I feel it is there more than we think.
True.
It is more common than we think, and इस टॉपिक पे बहुत ज़्यादा अवेयरनेस की ज़रूरत है और इस टॉपिक को समझना भी बहुत ज़रूरी है. एज पेरेंट्स आई थिंक first thing is to know and understand if my child is going through something like this. Then only we'll be able to help them. But are there any symptoms that parents can watch out for that my child might be going through some sort of abuse?
So abuse, Priyanka, could be of many types.
Yeah.
Of course, one widely known is sexual abuse, but more than that, mental abuse,
Mental,
verbal abuse,
Yeah.
is also quite subtle and more apparent.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe change in behavior in children, and subtly observing them in terms of what is their inclination and what are they doing these days, which is different from the past, can help you understand that if something is going on. Building trust with your child,
Yeah.
that they at least come and talk about everything that has happened to them is one way to deal with it. Because children are at some point, they want to hide things, and they want to hide only when they see the parents not so trustworthy to discuss things. So somewhere showing your availability, showing your acceptance, inclusiveness is more important to ensure that your child come to you and talk about it as in-hand experiences. Even if they don't perceive things, okay, but they did just like factual information also come to you, you can make perception based on that and intervene into it. So also it calls me to talk about nanny training, caretakers training, because they are the people who are with our children all the time.
Yeah.
So if they are seeing some kind of subtle changes into the behavior or something like that, or maybe the way the child is speaking, and it's very apparent and very sudden change, then these things have to come into your notice by them. So maybe helping them and training them to give you experiences and giving you factual information also works very well here.
I think other thing which I have always told my children, if somebody comes and says, ये मामा पापा को मत बताना, वो मुझे सबसे पहले बताना है. Because that's the biggest red flag.
True.
If somebody is telling you that, no matter what kind of threat they're giving you.
Absolutely.
That is the very first thing you have to come and tell me.
Of course.
Because something is wrong there. So I think as parents, it's also very important कि हम इतना openly और इतना difficult conversations को करें, so that our children are also equally open with us.
Yeah.
I'm glad you touched upon the nanny and the caretaker topic, because I think many families these days kind of turn to that kind of support because our lives are completely
demands that.
Yeah, completely demands that, and so busy. So we need to have some sort of help. And as you rightly said, कि caretakers or nannies are the ones जो बच्चे के साथ हर वक्त होते हैं.
True.
Talking about their own behavior, वो बच्चों को कितना impact करते हैं, and how mindful we as parents should be about hiring right kind of people for taking care of our children.
You know what? It's very lucky that we actually get a person who's trained like that to take care of our kids in a way the way you can. And it's family to family. Every family demands something else. So I think it's time to maybe spend that time with your nanny on initial days before you hand over your children to them, setting your boundaries about what kind of language is acceptable, what can you talk in front of kids, you can't talk in front of kids, what kind of observation you have to keep making and giving me reports. Maybe you can give them Hindi में या कहीं पर भी you can give them kind of a checklist जहाँ पे उनको खाली yes no करते जाना है, which makes them reminded of the task every day.
True.
You know
Actually,
what?
Very good point.
Yeah. Maybe one laminated sheet जहाँ पे every day इनको टिक करना है कि ये सब मैंने ऑब्जर्व किया है, तो शायद उनको भी ध्यान आ जाए कि यहाँ चलो. And making from your side, making it very important, convey them that this is non-negotiable. Few things I want you to get into it. Maybe in a subtle way, again with love and care that you can provide to your nanny too. They can also provide that to your children.
True.
You know, I'm not talking about being stricter to nannies, but I'm talking about setting our boundaries very clearly. That what
and
kind
making
of
them
support
also aware,
what kind of support. So it's very important they are also in same page of understanding of child rearing. So taking their lectures in initial years of what is important these days, आपकी लाइफ में क्या हुआ था, कैसे आप आगे बढ़े, क्या हमको देना चाहिए बच्चों को. Maybe educate them well. So because they are the people who are going to be there all the time and taking care.
And they come from a very different background compared to us. So
absolutely.
Then
making them aware of your own background in experiences also is important to start.
But I'm going to be mindful of this checklist point. Start implementing that.
I will give you points.
For sure. There's another thing which I would like to discuss very briefly. Teenagers turning into drugs and alcoholism. What could be the common reasons behind that? And can counseling solely help coming out of it?
Counseling helps them coming out of it at initial stage, or maybe can work as a protective grounds. After that, once children are already into it, of course counseling will be needed with some medical help. So that's later part. And the reason primarily that our children are getting into it, of course they all come with some kind of experiences where they find it more interesting than their actual natural life, which makes them get into that habit. So being in their delusional world, somewhere is reinforcing to them, which is making them get into the practice very often.
Okay.
That's one thing. Not having so much of education and awareness about their impacts to their life.
Yeah.
Not being shared social stories of cases going wrong. Maybe making them talk to those people also work. So if we talk about on precautionary ground, of course, counseling, being open to children, talking about it time to time, the way everything is needed to be talked. This also needed to be talked at the time when you feel that there is a question from them. So always parents ask me, like, what is the right time to talk about sex education or this and that? I said,
Yes.
The time when the question arises is a time to talk about it and start and constantly talk about it. Because the one question has a deep root and thoughts behind it before it became a question to you.
True.
You know?
True.
Or maybe subtle observation, like watching something differently should be a point, okay, something has to be taken care now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that way. So
And I
about
think as early as possible.
As early
you
as
think
possible.
you can have this
as
conversation
early as possible.
comfortably.
Yeah. When we feel that child is ready, showing some readiness to talk about this topic,
True.
let's not wait for it to become a need.
Huh. And that ease and that comfort should always be there from a
Yeah.
very young age. No matter what it is, we are always open to talk about it.
Absolutely, yes.
So that kind of comfort we have to bring in from a very young age, right?
Yeah,
From when they're babies, right?
Yeah, babies.
Because every age demands different kind of
Yeah,
conversation.
that trust and love keeps you going for. There's nothing else. Trust and love with one-hand experiences that you have to give and very clear responses. No ambiguous term used to them.
Yeah.
Gives them more clarity of what exactly they need.
True. All right, Binal, it's been such a fantastic conversation. I think so many questions I had and I didn't know how to encapsulate it in such limited time. And I'm sure most of the parents who are watching us, they're also full of questions which need to be answered. So they can always drop in their questions in the comment section and we'll be happy to answer those. Happy to have those answered from Binal.
Thank you.
And so moving on to the next segment we call Community Q&A.
Okay.
In this segment, we pick out a question we receive from our community and try getting at least one question answered. So today, the question we have received is from Neha. And her question is, her 8-year-old kid struggles with expressing emotions and often just says, I don't know.
Okay.
When asked about their feelings, she wants to know how can parents help kids open up and express their emotions better, especially when they tend to shut down instead of talking.
Okay.
Very common struggle, I think.
Very
parents have,
common struggle. But I think that question tells me that there is one or two way to look into it. It could be, of course, that selectively shutting off from disclosing their own emotions. That tells me that there is trust issue.
Yeah.
And that those difficult conversations have never been dealt before.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a process to get the trust out and slowly and gradually that they can talk more about it. Maybe talking something from your end and discussing that with the child also make them open to discuss there.
Yeah.
So that's one way. So building trust with love and care is one solution. But also it could be that child is not linguistically so developed to be able to articulate those emotions clearly. So there could be requirement of advanced level of language development there to be able to process it well and to articulate well.
Yeah.
So that could be anything of two.
True.
So I think, Neha, you need to look into the matter that what you feel is right for your child, and you may seek help wherever it requires.
Yeah.
If you feel that this is definitely hindering his learning ability, his functional ability, your family structure in a way that it is required, then for sure it calls for counseling and support and help.
So moving on to our next segment, we call it the fun or interactive segment. Here we play a quick game, you know.
Okay.
And today's game is called Tough Parenting Choices.
Okay.
So I'll give you 2 tricky parenting situations and you have to pick one and tell us why. So the number 1 is, would you rather have a child who's academically brilliant but struggles with social skills, or a child who's extremely social and confident but struggles with academics?
I think they both require intervention in its own way. If child is really social and doing well, I would expect them to go ahead by maybe getting learned better.
Yeah.
But if child is not social, then I would want them to be social first and then take the academics a little slowly before it jumps into bigger issue. So both needs intervention, right? In a way.
Yeah. Absolutely. One way or the other.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Because we want it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather raise a child who questions every rule and pushes boundaries, or a child who follows rules blindly without questioning them?
Let me have a child who breaks rule and asks me questions.
Yeah.
At least I have time and I have that opportunity to explicitly
Explain,
justify myself to make it more clearer.
And that gives them an opportunity to understand this better. Would you rather have a child who takes longer to achieve milestones but is emotionally strong, or a child who excels early but struggles emotionally?
No, let's. As a counselor would be able, it will be easy for me to work with a child who's emotionally more controlled, maybe taking long to learn, but at least ready to show perseverance where how it is required, and I can have longer journey for them.
100% agree with that, because I think if emotionally you're weaker,
Yeah.
that doesn't just affect your career or your growth as in education, but eventually it is going to affect your family, your children, and everybody in a longer run.
Absolutely.
So that needs to be dealt with first.
Bang on.
Well, I loved playing this game, and of course, every game calls for a hamper. So you're going to win this hamper from Maatehood today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you
Lovely.
so much.
No
Thank you so much for the lovely time.
Thank you, Binal. I had a great time chatting
Me
with
too.
you. I mean, my questions are still not over. There's so much I want to ask. And I think that is what parenting is. You're always full of questions and getting them answered from an expert like you.
I think being in a space where you want answers for your parenting makes it available to you.
True.
And at least I would say the right parent is a parent who thinks
And questions.
and want to change and want to grow.
Absolutely.
Rather than, and the parent who says, I know all and I'm doing it in
always
my way.
right.
I think, and that's the most dangerous parents a child can have.
True. Yeah, but thank you for being so patient and answering every question I had.
Thank you so much.
And wishing you lots of success ahead with the great work that you're doing.
Thank
And
you
you've
so
been
much, Priyanka.
helpful
It was
for so
lovely
many
meeting
parents.
to you.
Same.
And thank you for the great work that you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
it's amazing to call it important to be discussed also, and to be shown to parents too.